There's even a saying, people said, will you go to the stones? And it's basically like saying, will you go to church?
This word pyramid is like limitless fire. And then that's the symbolism on the back of the dollar bill.
The chief deity of the heathen Irish was Baal, the sun. The month of May is to this day named Beltane, the month of Baal's fire. And the first day of May is called La Beltane, the day of Baal's fire.
Wait, what other religion has a special Wednesday before the spring equinox? Can you think of anything? Does it have anything to do with fire? Purification? Ash Wednesday much?
A torch. Taurch. Holy crap.
Oh, shit.
Gotcha, bitch.
Baal-Pur is also Balfour. I wonder if anyone is picking up what I'm
You're the first one that I saw that was the first connection I've ever seen anyone make of that. That was good.
Theo, God, Nous, mind. Belinus is Dionysus. I mean, it's right there.
The all is mind.
Welcome to Inner World. We are doing the Empire of Baal Part 2. This actually, the first part, was one of the most popular episodes we ever did, the Empire of Baal. We scratched the surface of a really big question. I mean, you guys don't maybe realize just how big. Even though that was a 3-hour show, when you start to ask the question, who is Baal? And focus on what you might call the Baal system of feudalism, as it is extended from the ancient world up to modern times. There's so much to the story and super far reaching how the symbolism and linguistics connected to Baal really are. They're just enormous across time and geography. So to review, we're going to just review real quick. Made some infographics for the show in a new way. I think this is going to be really helpful. I'm calling it the Golden Thread of Baal, a major key to the ancient ecclesiastical feudal system. Ecclesiastical meaning the church hierarchy that is also involved in governance and in fact governs the governors. So this Golden Thread of Baal, the basics, although there are a lot of tangents, involves bull, ox, and cow symbolism, words that incorporate the letters B to L or reverse L to B, Bel, bull, Baal, bull, bill, and then all of that backwards, especially like leb. Philologically close words as well that replace the letter B with V, or sometimes with P, or sometimes F. So B switches with all of those in philology really frequently. And then also the replacement of the L with an R, sometimes N. So we have, once we open up that philological possibility, all of a sudden, Baal, Bel, bull is all kinds of other words, as we're going to continue to explore in this episode. Also, words that mean Lord and words that relate to the tar or tor root word that means bull, like Taurus. So in part 1 of this episode, we're going to go ahead and explore more of the Gaulish, Celtic relationship to the Baal system and understanding that that system extended from Italy to Ireland and has connections all the way into the Far East, even as far as Japan. And we're also going to look a little bit more at the Baal representations in the Old Testament. And that ought to take us through right to talking on Beltane, which today is Beltane, the day we're recording this, 5/1. And then that's it for the free hour, or however long it ends up being. And there's a lot more that'll be packed into part 2. Dylan, welcome, man. Are you stoked to get back into the Empire of Baal? Sounds so sinister.
Yes. I'm also grateful that nothing too serious happened over the last 10 days. You know, usually that leading up to the May Day, that Beltane. So the Irish or Celts, they say Beltane. And you've got that in your notes covered. But yeah, I'm just grateful that nothing serious happened during this time, because I feel like, I mean, there was.
What are you talking about? They tried to kill my president.
Yeah. Yeah, I get.
That's why we need a new Baal room that's shaped like a temple.
Don't talk about that on here, bro. We'll get nuked.
I thought YouTube doesn't like Orange Man.
Oh, you talking about the Baal room straight to the sewers? Oh, God. I'm going to squirt.
Yeah, shout out to Owen. But the thing that is interesting, you want to pull that graphic up? Because I came across something else that reminded me of you in an article.
Which
Uh,
graphic?
the one you just had up.
Oh, okay. I'll bring it back.
Yeah.
This is such a
So
good graphic.
one of the things you left off, probably just because I know you know this, but like the root that tor or is also sor or sar, and the alleged capital of Phoenicia is called Sur, and we spell it in English Tyr, but in Phoenician and other languages it's spelled Sadi Resh, which is like Tzr or Tsr, and that's where you get the root Zar. Um, and that means Lord, rock, or God. And you'll see in the Bible the same word means rock. Like it'll be like Sadi Resh. Sometimes they'll put a vav in the middle, so it'd be like Tzur, Zur. Sometimes it's just I think a shem for sure, or maybe just a samek. I can't remember. Haven't looked
Then you
at
have
this in
the
a while.
Suri or Shuri, which is a Eastern word for the sun.
Yes, but that word specifically means rock. So there's a connection between rock and Father and Lord, and you also see it with Peter and Petra. But, last episode, I think
Potter.
yeah, Pater. And I think you were last episode, remember you were talking about Abba and Appa and all that stuff? Well, I came across another word that's basically Abnim, were for stones or rocks. Well, so they pronounce it avnim, but that bayet, going down to the philological drift, it's interchangeable with B and V. So in Hebrew, they're the same letter. And in old synagogue, prior to the point system, someone would have to know the difference between, which letter that signifies. I don't think it's that important because I don't think they were speaking it. But that being said, it's the same letter. So that AB root is avnim or abnim, and also Abba, Father. And you can also see this we say the word Hebrew, but if you look at how Hebrew's spelt, it's ayin, bayit, yod, mem. So it's like, sorry, I think there's a resh in there, excuse me. So it's obri or ovri. That's how, if you literally looked at it, considering that the ayin is from the Phoenician alphabet, which gave way to the Omicron, that's an O. But Jews will say ivri. So they say Ivri, we say Hebrew. Why? If those letters aren't interchangeable, you know what I mean? So that's something to be mindful of. That's all.
That's a lot. It's a lot to pack in. So this is the golden thread of Baal. And yeah, trying to keep it simple because eventually someone would discover that Tor root, the bull Taurus, connects to Sir, Zar, Tyr. Well, what looks like Tyr, right? The Phoenician capital. And the other Phoenician capital being Byblos, the city of the book, as they call it, which has got a BL in it as well. It's basically Bible, right? The Bible. It just
And
never
actually,
ends.
the Y looks more like the ion that's used in it anyways. That looks more like it's like BYL. That's how it looks in Hebrew.
So, as we are already diving into, these connections of the golden thread of Baal inevitably lead to more types of symbolism. For example, small example, big ramifications. Adonis, which is a name of God that is translated to Lord in the Old Testament, Adonai, it also relates to beauty. Adonis is back to the Phoenicians, that's the Phoenician sun god, the resurrecting, dying, and resurrecting god of spring. And I'm just like, it's so tough to, like, we cannot actually make all these connections for you in a conversation, right? Like in the notes that you can get my notes on Substack if you subscribe there to the podcast. In my notes, I don't have it just flat out written. Adonis is the dying and resurrecting god of spring, representative of the death and rebirth of the year, right? And that means Lord. I don't have that spelled out. So you wouldn't make that connection unless you can yourself make that connection when you get into Beltane later in this episode and all of this diffusion of a cultural practice, ritual practice of celebrating the death and rebirth of the year that pertains to bulls and Baal. and the word bell, bull, Baal, right? That's Adonis. It's the same thing. I can't spell it all out for you. Dylan can't spell it all out for you. So we're just doing our best to try and focus on giving you keys that if you can internalize and learn, then you will see the stuff for yourself. And that's really what it's about. Like it's too much information, too many details to memorize it all. You actually need to understand the system, and then you'll just know what you're looking at when you come across it.
Yeah.
Also, go ahead.
Invest it in, well, for the people who really want to get that nitty gritty, that's why you go through Spirit World, because you can literally write volumes about it. It's just, and what is it the year of the what? The acceptable year of the what?
The acceptable year of the Baal. Yeah, particularly Spirit World Book 4, The Holy Sailors. That's going to be a really good counterpart to the conversation today. It's also really important to just review why the Baal thread matters, like why this isn't just intellectual curiosity, because this system, it's part of feudalism, right? It's a pyramid, it's part of a pyramid scheme, a pyramid system that sets each level of a hierarchy up as the lord or god of the level below it. You have your peasants and serfs at the bottom, all the way up to the pope on top, with tithes, taxes, exploitation, all of that funneling wealth, time, and life force from the base of this pyramid up to the apex. And even though our modern world in a lot of ways doesn't seem to resemble the pagan world, this structure, energetically, the flow of energy through the world, this still exists, period. Like the representation that this image you're seeing of this pyramid with all this flow upwards of energy flowing up to the top and exploitation, demeaning people flowing down from below. Oh, yeah, I guess dominating is the word, dominate, right? So, phonetically speaking, the BL words are a golden thread that connect ideas of lordship, divinity, even architecture and currency, all across a huge, wide swath of time and culture. Even the word PYR in Greek, it would be like, it looks like PURPYR. It means fire. That is a connection to Baal or Bel because of that common consonant shift of P to B that the Greeks particularly like to do, and R to L. And that, if one allows the Sanskrit and Greek, the pyramid, PYR, that means limitless fire. And PYR plus Amit in Sanskrit, that means boundless. So this word pyramid is like limitless fire. Then that's basically, I think, the symbolism in the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill that was added in 1935 after dollars became truly limitless fire, limitless energy as fiat, debt-based currency, fully replacing any limitations of scarcity based on precious metals, right? I mean, it just like there's no end to how many dollars are going to be printed. Dylan, looks like you wanted to jump in there.
Well, I was just going to say something because I think we covered it in last episode or the one before that. I can't remember. It's getting too much for me to keep track of. And
I know, we're on fire.
And this is going to, I mean, if you just look at our podcast, each episode averages about 3 hours, I would say. Some more, some a little bit less. We're going on episode 21. That's over 60 hours. So this is very research dense material, and it has replay value. But see how you have par, which is bull down there? It says pei resh. Well, that's also the root of pharos, which is a lighthouse in Greek. And what's interesting about that is they write about these. This is the old Etruscan Phoenician system. You see them in Sardinia, but you also see them as the Pictish towers in Britain. These served multiple functions: fortresses, temples. There was usually a pillar near them for measuring the sun and all that stuff, but also lighthouses. And you'll see they're situated like that, and they have fire in them. and they would, in addition to being strongholds, guard treasure. So this is actually where some historians say the allegory of the dragons guarding treasure is of the Pharos, or the Neuralgic towers. So, and that's what the Tyrrhenians or Tyrrhenians are named after, towers, Tyrses. And this always goes back, how I told you, one of our most important episodes we ever did, at least for the foundation of this, is episode 3, the Age of Tours. Taurus, towers, tours, Tours in French is towers. Because wherever this ancient Italian cult went, in empire, they would erect these towers. It's very important, but just because
they had theological significance, and they had maritime importance as well, right? It was like all of these things, the maritime law conspiracy people have heard about, it all ties into this. Like you said, par, the word for bull, that's the same as Baal, which is P switching to B, R switching to L, very common. And if you go ahead and keep the L, sorry, if you go ahead and keep the R, P to R is pure, fire, right? The bull and the fire archetype. These letter swaps are just definitely not spurious connections. That's why I have this graphic up here.
What's required to purify gold or metal?
Yeah, fire purifies, exactly. On a pyre, a fire makes a body pure, right? It turns the body to ash. The esh, which is the Hebrew word for fire, turns the body into ash. The bull archetype also purifies through the tradition of sacrificing a bull to the gods. Or you have the taurectomy in Persia, Mithras slaying the bull. That's very significant for this time of the year. Why? Why would one need to pay a bull to the Lord, but for the settling of a debt? Theologically speaking, sin is debt. The sacrifice of the bull, the Lord, Jesus, is meant to pay the bill. When one is imprisoned for their sins, their crime, what do they pay for their freedom? They pay bail. Get out of prison. You're paying the debt that you owe. So this is just so ingrained.
You're getting bailed out of hot water. Rest in peace, Russell Pine, also known as Jordan Maxwell.
Yeah. Back to the maritime part of this. If you are starting to take on some debt in your boat, like you have an imbalance of water, you're going to be, like, currency speaking, back to like that whole finance talk, right? You're underwater. You're getting sunk. Your ship's getting sunk. You got to bail. You got to get the buckets and bail it all out. So let's talk a little bit about the Bible here. Baal and the Baalim, which we discussed a lot last time, it's referenced over 80 times in the Old Testament. We have yet to thoroughly investigate all of that context or all of the iterations of the Lord Bull in the Middle East or beyond, through Britain or Asia. In fact, we'll have to pick this topic up again to continue more iterations of the bull, of the bill, the Baal, etc. And I don't think all of the biblical Baal versions are that necessary to look at, but this is a really good one because there's multiple Baals referenced in the Old Testament. See on this infographic, we're looking at Numbers chapter 25. This involves a version of Baal called Baal-Pur. There's that word again, pure. So I'm just going to read this chapter, or from verses 1 through 9. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal-Pur, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And the Lord said unto Moses, Take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. That's hardcore. Moses said unto the judges of Israel, Slay ye every one his men that were joined unto Baal-Pur. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman into the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. And he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. And the number that died in the plague were 24,000. So this is atrocity propaganda. We talked about this in the previous episode. This is part of how something important is concealed. It's just an old part of esotericism, especially with a specific tribe that really like to put atrocities in front of something that they don't want you to look into, or something scary. Go back to part 1 for more of that discussion. But this passage from Numbers 25, notice the fierce anger of the Lord is expressed by hanging the heads of idolaters in the sun. The sun, right? Not that we need to argue that the Lord is the sun. Also, the slaughter of heretics, divine retribution, is called a plague. Before the word plague was changed in more recent times to mean a pandemic, it never meant viruses or disease epidemics. That concept was unknown in the ancient world. It was always associated with divine wrath and physical violence. And in fact, the concept itself of a plague in this usage of like a bunch of people died, essentially, that is completely invented by the Vulgate Bible. Before that, plaga just meant like to hit somebody or strike somebody or wound. It was like not related at all to a mass death event. And then that got attributed by the Vulgate, the Vulgate, right? V to B, the Latin version of the Bible, which there's a lot of reason to think that's the original version of the Bible, not a translation. Dylan, you want to comment before I go into further here about Baal-Pur?
Yes. So while you were reading the passage from Numbers, I looked up just to see. I was just curious how it's written. So Peor, however you want to spell that in English, or pronounce it, whatever. The fact that we transliterate that as Peor is bizarre to me because it's Pe, Ayin, Vav, Resh. So it's actually Pour. So now it's got me thinking to pour.
I have that in my notes coming up.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't see it.
That's okay. You're seeing the same thing as me, right? Like, that means it's there. There's a there. I'm not just pulling, neither of us is just making this up. I have it on a graphic here because this is a great example of biblical translator dishonesty. The translator is the traitor, as they say. In the iteration here, which is Pe, Ayin, Resh, it's Pe, Ayin, Vav, Resh, right? The biblical scholars are saying this refers to a place, Peor, which is associated with Moabites, and that Baal-Pur is the false god of this particular location. So it's like the Baal of Peor. But if you just remove the vowels from it, right? What do you get? Pe-resh, the Hebrew word for bull. And Peor being not an honest transliteration at all, it should look more like pure, P-U-R, fire, because ayin can frequently represent more like an apostrophe as well. Either way, you have pure, which is fire, you have pour, you have pover. Baal means Lord, but I think what we're really seeing here is a pun on the word bull. It's the Lord Bull is what is being said, not a place, right? But even more weird is that letter Pe in Hebrew represents P and F. So Baal-Pur is also, or Baal-Pur is also Balfour. I wonder if anyone is picking up what I'm.
You're the first one that I saw. That was the first connection I've ever seen anyone make to that. That was good.
I saw it and I was like, this is important. So we'll get to that. But savvy listeners got to recall before we get to Balfour, the symbolism of grain and corn is associated with Kronos, which is the Phoenician Phoenicians called Israel, right? And that far is a Latin root pertaining to light, corn, and grain. So Baal corn is another thing that's being said here. Baal Chronos, right? The root KRN is horn, radiance, light, all that. It's used to describe Moses in the Old Testament. Kaf Resh Nun. Pharaoh, as you were saying, Dylan, in Latin is a lighthouse, Faro, and Pharaoh, Farro, is corn, grain. A lighthouse is a fire that guides navigators. This is the etymology of Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the bull lord of the grain whose fire guides. All of that concept is in the word Pharaoh. But yeah, Balfour, this is where it gets.
Before we move on, can you just go back to that numbers 25 graphic? I just wasn't sure if you're going to say anything. Since I didn't hear anything, maybe you have something planned for it. So if we don't have to
just
go through
for it. Yeah, it's okay if we repeat stuff because
number 4. What do you see with that name? Number 4.
Phineas?
Phineas Farsaid. That's the Phoenician, the founder of like the Irish Phoenicus or Shunkus, the code of law.
I mean, it's also
Fenian, like literally the Phoenician.
It's also the word. It's like Phoenix. It's the same word as
prow
Phoenix.
of the ship. I just wasn't sure if you're going to touch on that, so I
totally missed that. I totally missed that. It's the Phoenix, and this is totally a Phoenix situation because Israel is basically. I mean, how do you kill 24,000 of your people, and then you're like everything's cool after that, right? This is a purge. Back to the idea of purification, which is super associated with the bull and the Baal and Beltane. This is the purge.
Maybe I'm just a little bit too emotional right now, like just with the way I'm judging this. But when you said that about the plague, I got chills thinking about like the Black Death and like what if that was literally just a purge? Like there was no Wuhan wiggle like thing, and it was
there
just
definitely wasn't because that's
just an excuse to kill people.
Probably a classic poisoning the well situation. If it wasn't simply chalked up to really bad sanitation and nutrition, right? Probably something like that. But yeah, here was this is a synchromysticism of it all, if it's not intentional. On November 2nd, 1917, the Zionist movement secured a major victory. The Balfour Declaration, right? We just looked at Baal-Pur. Balfour is a letter sent from the British Foreign Secretary Arthur James Balfour to Lord Lionel Walter Rothschild, which promised a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine with the explicit condition that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. It could be said that the Balfour Declaration marked the beginning of the modern state of Israel as we know it, although the promise not to infringe on non-Jews was obviously quite quickly broken. Baal-Pur is also Balfour, the P to F interchange that is implicit in the letter pay. Super interesting coincidence. Or is it? The state of Israel founded on a false history, false ancestry, rooted in biblical literalism, as we've shown over and over again, that this modern state of Israel begins with the Balfour, Lord Bull, declaring this to Lord Lion God, Lionel Rothschild of the Zionist Federation. Man, one thing, this is shots fired, but one thing the modern state of Israel has in common with the mythological Hebrews of the Bible is that whether they be Palestinians, Syrians, Iraqis, Iranians, or biblical Philistines, Moabites, Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, etc., Israel is always destroying their neighbors. It is par for the course.
By the way, I just forgot. Remember, so that you just released an episode, and God bless him, that young man had no idea what the parasites really were. he was right in like eating off another's plate, but he forgot to neglect that they were like priests who would like preach to you in exchange for food. So the very word parasite, the very word parasite is another fucking word for these monkish cocksuckers.
Literally the only example of parasites that exists. They don't exist in nature as described, but
real quick, because
priests
you
for
went
sure.
there, do you have the ability to share your screen live while you type into search engines, or do you not have that ability?
I potentially could do that.
Because if I would love for you to see, just type in, does Herodotus mention Jews?
I know the answer.
But it'd be fun to just see it live so you know that I'm not like bullshitting.
It's one of the top searches. Herodotus does not explicitly mention Jews or Hebrews by name in the histories.
Now do it with Palestine. Just change, yeah. And the reason I'm doing this is because it has been Palestine all the way far back as far as we can see. And we have shown you, we have literally done the best work in the world, showing you the actual historical precedent that Israel did not exist in the ancient world. In fact, we've cited Eusebius, the father of ecclesiastical history, if that's how you pronounce his name. I don't know. I think it might be Eusebius or Eusebius. I don't know how to say it, but the point is, Israel is a Phoenician word for Chronos, even according to him. I'm not saying I believe that, but he cited Porphyry, and we'll never know what Porphyry's work said because they committed Porphyry's work to the flame conveniently, because he wrote a very important document called Against Christianity or something like that. So the point of this, it's not to judge people, but if the truth matters to you and you want to defeat the presumptions of all these Abrahamic traditions or cults using these religious beliefs to justify murdering people to take their land because they believe something that happened as history in the Bible, when in fact the Bible is just a product of the Middle Ages. You need to defeat this legally. And the only way to do that is to defeat the religion as historical truth. But none of you want to do this, not on the Muslim side, not on the Christian side, nobody. You just want to bitch and bitch. But we're giving you the tools where you actually don't have to bitch. You can just
amazing.
say,
they play those two other sides of the Abrahamic, like back to that pyramid structure. You put the Israel on top of that pyramid, and then at the bottom two corners, you have Christians and Muslims fighting each other, divided by that top point being Israel.
And they're like a triune Godhead. So like one time it'll be the Christians at the top, then it'll be the Jews at the top, and now it's probably going to be the Muslims at the top. And it's just this revolving door.
A lot of places in the West, yeah, man, the mass immigration thing is happening. I think that they do just rotate that pyramid around. And the real question is like, who's in the middle of that in terms of the metaphor? But Dylan,
we're gonna get to that when we get to the papal bulls because of where they're signed, but we won't, and the hidden ones.
I have bad news, man. According to Ira says that you're being anti-Semitic because IRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IRA, says anti-Semitism is
a joke, right? Like that's not
no, this is a real thing. International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, they set the definition for what anti-Semitism is in the world. And that's literally an acronym for IRA. You can't make this up. I learned this from Big Bear. So anti-Semitism is defined as a certain perception of Jews. A certain perception. You don't have to even say anything or do anything. You just have everyone that's watching this, according to this definition, the perception that you're having is anti-Semitic just by the perception of it. Sorry. Yeah.
And there's something that, I can liberate all of you who are in these cults right now. The actual definition of a Semite means to be descended from Shem, Noah's son. Now, to speak a Semitic language implies that you speak a language, you're one of the people that speaks the languages that are descended from Noah's son, Shem. This concept was not created till the late 1700s, early 1800s by a gentleman named Eichhorn. So this is a relatively modern concept. It has no basis in reality. There's actually no such thing as a Semite in the historical record, because everything you have about the Bibles is created in the Middle Ages, and you will not find anything in the ancient world talking about this stuff. And so there is no Semite, thus there is no anti-Semite. All that you have is sorcery and people playing mind games to keep you from speaking about serious matters, which right now usually involves speaking out against a literal genocide, ethnic cleansing, whatever you want to call it, theft, murder. And if you speak out against it, it's a convenient term to brand you as like somebody who is basically doing what they're doing, right? It's always project the wicked people projecting what they are onto good people who have concerns about the behavior of wicked people. And this isn't just particular to now. They'll do that with patriotism. So if you don't support America bombing Iran and killing all these little kids and shit, well, you must be anti-American. You're not a patriot. They do this with everything. It's a mind game. And once you are no longer a pussy, pusillam, there's an actual word, no disrespect to a female's genitive organ. That's not what it means. When you're not a pussy, when you're not afraid to speak the truth, then you can just call it out. And they ain't never going to come at someone like me, because I'll just fucking obliterate them like that. I'm not going to sit there and enter their construct like all these other people when they're like, so are you anti-Semitic? And then people sit there and go, well, no, I'm not anti-Semitic. The Palestinians are Semites. No, the Palestinians are not Semites. There is no Semite. There's no Gaza. If you look at what Gaza means, pull it up how it's written in the Bible. It's the same as Israel. It's spelled Azza. What is that? Goat.
Damn,
it's Capricorn.
It's the goat.
This is
Kronos.
astrotheology, which is
Saturn.
why we are the most important scholars / researchers / podcasters in the fucking world right now.
And remember, Porphyry wrote that the Phoenicians called Saturn or Kronos Israel. So what is right in the middle of Israel is Azza, the goat, the word for goat, biblically speaking. That's Capricorn ruled by Saturn, Kronos. It doesn't get more clear than that. I'm glad we took that little.
And I'm sorry to have the fire, but
no, don't be.
It's frustrating to see you people out there constantly bullshitting on each other's conspiracy podcasts or whatever the fuck else you think you're doing, and you can't get anything right because you're astroturfed by idiots. Because the real argument, the real truth isn't controversial, and we don't have to fight. We can just lay it down, facts. If you're not a degenerate, mentally ill freak show, you can just look at the facts and be like, yeah, dang, we really have no right to kill these people and take their land. Imagine that. Imagine having the common sense to just be like, it's actually morally wrong for me to kill these people and take their land. That's a fucking controversy. That's how retarded.
Or even
people are so sunken.
Buddy, even the religious types that think that the way to defeat the cabal is with Christ Jesus, amen. Like, bro, that's what got us here. That is what your superstition is what got us here. So don't act like you're some kind of brilliant mastermind conspiracy wizard to be able to figure out all of these things about, the little season and the millennial reign of Jesus, and they're hiding the fact that Jesus already came back. And this is the popular thing in conspiracy world right now, right? And all that it is another redirection, another controlled opposition of, hey, you guys are starting to notice some stuff. Well, let's just make sure we sprinkle into your narrative, into your conversation, into what's popular, into what gets the algorithm boosting religious superstition. And then you're right back where you were that got you into feudalism in the first place. And it doesn't matter how much you talk and bullshit about your superstition that you have nothing to back it up, never witnessed in your life with your own eyes, any kind of self-evident truth that supported your superstitious religious belief.
Yeah,
You're
and
you're bearing false witness. The karma of that, or whatever you want to call it, that is a real spiritual principle. You bear false witness constantly. You tell lies constantly. Even if you believe the lie, your life is a lie, right? And you don't get to defeat external lies by telling lies. It doesn't work like that. So, get out of your cult, right? There's a lot of beautiful symbolism. There's a lot of spiritual truths that are laid up in these religions, but you gotta ditch the literalism. You gotta ditch the superstition. Otherwise, you're just a liar trapped in a world of lies.
And we're not anti anyone. We're pro everyone. We're pro prosperity. We're pro living in harmony. We're pro having a good standard of living, which we could all have if we just held immoral people accountable and we didn't destroy each other with war and kill each other because we're not mentally sound enough to solve our problems without violence. That is what savages do. And there's no place in civilized culture for fucking savages. And we're not actually on a soapbox speaking down to you as though we didn't come from it. I mean, on my mom's side, I'm only 3 generations removed from descending from the Conti family. And they married into the Bourbon family with King Louis XIV's daughter, and they produced 4 popes, 9 cardinals. Like, I'm not sitting here saying I'm holier than thou. I'm sitting here saying you all need to leave your cult unless it can be demonstrated that there are facts. But if there's facts, then that's no longer a cult. You're just living in truth, living in reality. So you don't need to enter a group to access these facts. And these cults are intentionally pitting you against significant portions of the other populations around the world. And I promise you, you have more in common with the average Iranian than you do with the people ruling you. So you shouldn't be celebrating all this violence. It's horrible for everybody. And our standard of living is going to go down because of it.
All right. So back to the notes. Yeah, that needed to be said, and it's going to need to be said again. And it'll come up when it comes up. But let's talk about the Celts, the Gauls, right? We're going to make some really interesting connections here. Now, the case for the universality of this system of symbolism and superstition in ancient history, making the case for the universality is not hard. The hard part is not finding the evidence. It's deciding which evidence to include, because the sheer bulk of details, like I was kind of getting into earlier, it's like overwhelming amount of evidence. So it's about trying to pick and choose what makes the case best. I recommend, when we're talking about Celts, Ireland, England, checking out, as I said at the beginning, The Holy Sailors. This book, Book 4 of Spirit World. It's an extremely comprehensive exploration of the existence of the Phoenician, Italian, Celtic system in Britain, the relationship of those people in that island to the Phoenicians. If you prefer to listen rather than read, there's an audiobook that I narrated back in the day. So,
real quick, because it's not in your notes.
It's one of my favorites.
I just keyword searched to see if you had this and you don't. So I just want to go in there real quick because we're going to Celts and we're talking about stones and lords and all that stuff. Well, the very word Kel, or so C-E-L or K-I-L, means stone. That's what churches were called. And so a house or a temple of Kel. And so
and then you have the RL swap. So the Kur of Kirke is the Kel.
And kid, and it goes into everything. But that's when you see all in Great Britain, these circles, these stone circles, that's a circle of Kel, a temple of Kel. So there's even like a saying like that people said, like, will you go to the stones, or have you been at the stones? And it's basically like saying, will you go to church, or have you been at church? And so some people hypothesize, like Higgins, that the stones, the Celtics, are named after this philology.
Yep. And speaking of philology, you hear in history about the Gauls, the Gaulish people. You hear about the Celts, right? It's the same people. It's the same race. C and G swap. Kel, Gaul. It's the same thing. So we're referring to European peoples of a particular phenotype. And that's the blonde and red-haired peoples, white people, essentially, including they were in Italy as well. So just keep that in mind. You're going to hear Celt, you're going to hear Gaul. It's the same people. The problem running into...
They're all over the Mediterranean. You can find them in Palestine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Lebanon.
The real genocide is against these peoples, to be honest. I mean, if we want to use that word, or like suppression, we'll just say suppression and enslavement. And it's the very people that built civilization. So running into mainstream academic positions about the connections we're going to make that claim Phoenicians originate from the Middle East, that's what I'm sorry. The problem you'll run into when you're researching mainstream academic positions about the connections we're about to bring up, the claim that Phoenicians originate from the Middle East is going to be the thing that stops you, or this is the incorrect thing, right? They were there, but it's not where they come from, I think. Notice, too, that Lebanon, where Phoenicia is said to have been located, that's Leb, that's Bel in reverse. So, yeah, the system existed there for sure, but Dylan's work is not even original other than he's made new connections, but it's not even original. It revives an older tradition of highly suppressed scholarship that makes a strong case for the Phoenicians being the Etruscans, the Ortrusians, Tyrrhenians, Pelasgi. These are different names for them from the ancient Italian peninsula. And notice the other names for these holy sailors: Tyrrhenians, there's Tor, Pelasgi, that's what the Greeks called them. Bel, the Pelasgi, right? It's right there in both of these names for them.
Yeah, and the big thing for me is twofold. The first, language. Is the Irish almost one for one with the remaining portion of the Phoenician or Punic found at Malta? The answer is yes. Do the Irish use ancient Etruscan words? Yes. Are the Irish Oriental or Middle Eastern or anything like that? No.
No. Not even close.
And that's the big deal.
But you know what? Regardless of which part of the world originated the system, even though obviously Italy is the central ideal position between Britain and the Middle East, the connections from Europe to Asia are undeniable. And we're going to focus on the far western part of Europe. Encyclopedia Britannica has one short entry on the following Celtic god: Belinus, Belenus. This is the entry. Belinus, Celtic, possibly. Actually, you want to read this one? Read some of my quotes for me that might help me save my voice.
Yeah, where are we? I've lost.
Starts Encyclopedia
Britannica.
Yeah,
gotcha. Heard. Encyclopedia Britannica has the following entry on the Celtic god Belinus. Belinus, Celtic, possibly Bright one of the most ancient and widely worshipped of the pagan Celtic deities. Also, I say Celtic. A lot of people say Celtic, but like a lot of Scotsmen and Irish, they'll say Celtic. So I'm not really sure, if that's like a Norman tweak. They're just used to the Norman way of pronouncing that, because prior, a long time ago, the C functioned like a G and a K. So it was more Celtic or Celtic. So that's probably where you get Galtic or Gaulish. Anyways, he was associated with pastoralism. That pastoralism is taking animals out to the pasture?
That's right.
Okay. So he's a shepherd. Shocking. A great fire festival called Beltane was held on May 1st and was probably originally connected with his cult. Does Encyclopedia use probably originally? That's like two adverbs.
This is a direct quote, dude. This entry in
the road to hell
Britannica
is paved with adverbs. Stephen King.
This entry, we need to read it, but this is a prestigious encyclopedia. from the very place that this god would have been worshipped, Britain. And this short paragraph is all they have on Belinus in the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's obvious suppression or retardation or both. I don't know which. But okay, Beltane, held on May 1st, probably originally connected with this cult, probably.
This is definitely
Beltane
written by somebody who probably has a Blue Sky account.
Probably Belinus has something to do with Beltane. Probably. Maybe.
Oh, God. Anyways, on that day, the cattle were purified and protected by fire before being put out to the open pastures for the summer. Despite associations of his name with fire or the sun, Belinus was not a sun god. In fact, there is no Celtic evidence for the worship of the sun as such, even though it was often used in religious imagery. In other words, I'm pissing on your leg, but it's coming from God. It's raining. It's the dewdrops of mana.
Thanks, Encyclopedia Britannica. Thanks for that.
Where do they dig up these creatures? Holy shit.
I don't know. I don't know what's worse. Superstition, dishonesty from superstition, or academic dishonesty through retardation. I don't know.
I think they really are this mentally declined. Like, I really do think they're not deficient, or they're not they are deficient. There we go. I really think there's something wrong with a lot of these people, and they're raised in a brainwashed situation.
Ladies and gentlemen, retards.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Just say it how it is. Belinus, right? Is
touched by the angels.
Belinus is associated with fire, brightness, and the sun was often used. And the sun was often used in Celtic religious imagery, but he's not a sun god. Yeah.
They may be down. Fuck, I can't even say it.
So let's just jump over to Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia,
but their adverbs are up.
Wikipedia describes Belinus as a healing god whose principal center of worship was at Aquileia, which is northeast Italy, but extended through Europe all the way to Britain. Roman inscriptions identify him with Apollo, who is undeniably the sun and a god of healing. As you can see, the mainstream does not have any kind of unified front in their understanding of this system, and they cannot comprehend esotericism at all. That's just way over their head. They also allege, they being Wikipedia actually, that Belinus was associated with hydrolatry cults. Their exact word, healing springs and waters. Belinus was more than just a folk deity, guys. These are what are called civic cults, meaning a merger of religion and governance for the city-states and villages that were part of this ecclesiastical system, aka feudalism. In the Oxford Companion to World Mythology, this from the early 2000s, cites that Belinus may also have been known in Ireland and Britain by the variants Bel, Belly, and Bele. So here is, now this is Slovenia, so this is much further east.
Real quick.
Roman inscription that says, it's hard to read. Hold on. What does it say in my notes? Okay. This is Belino. Shit, I did not get the writing transcribed. This is too hard to read. But either way, this is Latin, Roman altar to Belinus from Slovenia. Maybe not the best image to pull in because I didn't find the receipt on what it said. It's too hard to read. But hey, there's a rock, right? Now, what I want to get into, really, more importantly, is how in the Gaulish language, bello is strong, powerful, something like that. And nos, N-O-S, is a suffix that means lord or master. So according to the mainstream philologists, etymologists, they're saying Belinus is a powerful lord, powerful master. According to Wikipedia, there are inscriptions to Fons Bellini, which means Fons is like water, ponds, fons.
It's a fountain, source, spring.
Fountain. and an altar where Belinus is worshipped alongside the nymphs somewhere. Don't know where. This is according to Wikipedia. And the references that they give for this Fons Bellini, the spring belonging to Bel, is behind academic gates. So much of the archaeological discoveries are behind academic gates. Like, I can't get into it. I can't see it, but it's alleged. So it's allegedly. Can't look at it.
Hold on a second. I can't get over this. So you mean to tell me these people think that it has nothing to do with the sun, but they also admitted that it's associated with the hydrolatry cults? Didn't we just do a whole episode on hydrolatry?
Well, the not associated with the sun people are Encyclopedia Britannica. Wikipedia has Britannica has this one garbage retard paragraph, mentally handicapped paragraph that finishes with no evidence of sun worship. Wikipedia has a lot more stuff on it and references. So, give credit to Wikipedia. There's stuff there you can track down.
Real quick,
other
also,
than what's behind the academic gate.
Nous, N-O-S, is also like another rendering of Noah, because if you look in the Greek world, is that? Are you going there? Okay, my bad.
No, you go ahead. I'm going to repeat it.
Well, no, I was just going to say some of the words for Noah in Greek, it's spelled N-O-U-S.
Look at this golden infographic. This infographic for people just listening. Gotta get on the video version of the show. Screenshot this if you want. All right. I'm going to go through it, okay? I'm going to go through this.
Or just subscribe to Chance so you can have access to his show notes, and then you can download all that shit and for yourself.
Follow along. So, strong Lord, Belinus. That's a reasonable etymology. It's consistent with the symbolism of Baal, sure. But the bigger linguistic connection that literally everyone missed except Dylan just immediately noticed is that Nous in Belinus or Nous in Belinus, because it's spelled either way, N-O-S, N-U-S, that is Nous, which is mind. That makes Belinus philologically identical as a word as what? Dionysus. Theo, God, Lord, Nous, mind. Belinus, Lord, Nous, mind. Belinus is Dionysus. I mean, it's right there.
The all is mind. It's kind of that idea that we're all in God's mind.
Yep. And Bacchus or Dionysus was heavily associated with what? Hydrolatry cults and springs. Hello. That was in our Moses episodes.
A little bit of drinky. Didn't Noah get drunk a little bit too much?
And he's what? A fertility god, right? Associated with springtime, right? And then back. So, see, what was it? Episode 9? I think I put 19 in my notes. But back in episode 9, we also discussed how Noah is Nous through the interchange of hey, H, with the Hebrew letter hey, with Greek he, which is our X or C or S. So that episode gets really thorough in demonstrating how Dionysus is the god Noah. And just that's not far-fetched at all, even though it might seem first. Once you go through all those episodes, like episode 3, episode 9, the Moses episodes, whichever one had the big Bacchus comparison in it to Moses, you can see really clearly there is not all these different pagan gods. There's one system. There's one God that has 3 forms. There's a trinity that is one. And it's the same everywhere all the time. And all these names that are given to us by academia and later Greek authors who didn't know what they're talking about or were intentionally concealing because that was something that philosophers and priests always would do. They invented this idea that there's like a million gods. But all of these gods' names are just titles and epithets that mean the same shit as each other. Right? There's just the one. Anyway.
Well, I got something that's related to this. And we can go into it later, but you have this thing which is where Kiev, and that's another name we could probably dive into. You were talking about something that made me think of Kiev when I was I was looking at one of your graphics. But you have this thing near the Black Sea, which is like Ukraine and all that, called the Tauric Peninsula, and in the ancient world, this is called Tauric Chersonesus. And I think it's related to Kherson. We say Kherson too. There's like that word. But Eustathius wrote, the Tauric nation was so named from the animal Taurus, or bull, which was looked upon as a memorial of the great husbandman Osiris, who first taught agriculture and to whom was ascribed the invention of the plow.
Oh yeah, what's right in the middle of Osiris is SR, sir. There you go. So also, let's just say, hey, we're looking at Nous in Gallic. When it's a suffix, it means Lord, as in Belinus. But if it's not a suffix in the Gaulish language, NOS, what do you think it means, Dylan? Nox, night.
I was going to say night. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, night, right? So there is an example of S changing to X. And
the Spaniards use that too. Like Mexico was actually Mexico. Like Messi was the savior.
Right. This happens all the time. So when we go back to Noah, the Hebrew word nun, hey, it is even admitted to be pronounced in Hebrew when said aloud with a guttural sound, not a soft like Noah. It's actually Noah, like that. So if it's Noah and we're getting a CH sound, that's like an X or a key in Greek that is interchangeable with S. Mexico, Messico, like you just said. Nos in Gaulish, nox in Latin. Furthermore, right, nos or nox as night and nous, Noah, mind, completely related concepts, because when you close your eyes and focus your mind, it becomes dark like night, right? You experience your mind in darkness. The nighttime hours are when the mind becomes more active, contemplation time, dream time, meditation. In the Sanchuniathon, the alleged cosmology of the Phoenicians, the Phoenician cosmology story, i.e. the Punic, that is Punic people, puny, the night is the mother of the cosmic egg, which is a dual symbol. Obviously, the cosmic egg is the Ark of Noah. It's the box that Dionysus was put in as a baby. It's the basket of Moses cast on the river, all over the place. So the God mind, Dio Nous, is the creator of all. The universe is in the mind of God. God talks to you through your mind. That mind is visible at night. The mind of God is visible at night as the heavens. So it's when you see the stars. So this is a huge critical link in Baal's golden thread. Belinus,
and in one of
the god Noah, Dionysus, Ad Don Nous, Lord, Father, Mind. Boom.
And what is this great empire? What was the tactical advantage they had? The ability to navigate by night using the stars. And that's actually what people like William Betham have used Celtic root words strung together in Pegasus. So if you look at that, break that down into Celtic, it means whence by night. So they say the illusion is that it means it's a ship. It symbolizes a ship navigating at night.
Yeah, and what shape is the Pegasus constellation? It is a square.
Arc.
It's a box. It's an arc. Yeah, there's a lot to that. I refer to this all the time. Man, I know you hate, or not hate, but like, you don't believe in the provenance of cuneiform as presented. And I agree with you, but just out of curiosity, someone that took the time to learn that system of cuneiform and what that language is allegedly, you got to check out. I'm just going to show you this book all the time. Someday, just pick up this book. You just read some chapters of it. You don't have to read all of it, because each chapter is like a expose essay about a particular miracle story and how he's discovered the astrotheology of that miracle story, including Noah's Ark and the Garden of Eden and all of this beginning and end of the world symbolism. All is in the Pegasus Square, even down to names of the stars that make up that constellation, having specific being specific words or puns with words that are tied to that, whatever myth it is, whatever version of it is. So if you ever wonder how in the world someone thought it was a good idea to have Samson, a story of Samson killing 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of an ass, right? That's all in the Cancer constellation. He shows it. He shows the jawbone. He shows like all in the wordplay as if the stars were words because of the names of the stars and the wordplay across multiple languages. You would just like, we don't have to care about cuneiform, but I think you would find this interesting because I believe he's onto something because he doesn't just look at cuneiform. He's looking at other languages like Greek and stuff. I think this is like the best astrotheology scholarly work by a guy who's in academia. He works at a university. Like he's amazing. So just someday, for like my birthday next year, just read a chapter of this book and enjoy it. The Celestial Code of Scripture by John McHugh for people just listening. Great book. Friend of mine, friend of the show.
There's nothing I disagree with. It's like basically, it's like an echo chamber. It's astrotheology. We already know.
Yeah.
My thing is though, like when he came onto your show, remember the first time, he didn't even know what the royal stars were. So it's like you're looking at it from a system that's outside of the cult that require, like I get it. It's just for me, it's like, I need to see the precedent of that language in the ancient for me to take it seriously. And I just don't see it.
It's a fun book.
But I don't disagree with any of the statements about it being like astrotheology.
Oh man, so we're at about an hour. We better pick this up because I want to get through Beltane
get on the other side
before we go to the other side. All right, so this is a guy that you've talked a lot about in your work, Charles Valancy. He published in the early 1800s. He wrote about the connection between the Punic or Phoenician and the Celtic Irish languages. You want to read this quote from him?
Sure.
Right above
he wrote,
bust.
The chief deity of the Carthaginians was Baal, or Baal or Bel, the sun, to whom they offered human sacrifices. The chief deity of the heathen Irish was Baal, the sun, spelled B-E-A-L, to whom they offered human sacrifices. The month of May is to this day named Mibaltina, the month of Baal's fire, and the first day of May is called La Beatina, the day of Baal's fire. And that's from an essay on the antiquity of the Irish language being a collection of the Irish with the Punic language, page 45. Do you want me to keep going or do you want to chime in? I'll keep going, man. Valancy still thought
I was muted. Just say that again. Beltane. What does that sound like to you? Right? Do you hear that? Tenia.
I was thinking like you were going to weave like Mary into that somehow with me.
Oh, no.
Miriam.
Beltane.
Oh, yeah. That's Etruscan Lord Tenia. Yep.
The Etruscan
And so
Jupiter.
For those who have never seen this is the Etruscan version of, Jupiter, Zeus. Also, you could probably, it's like the same as Serapis, or Setapine as he's written sometimes. There's so many. It's the Jesus archetype, like 1,000 years before the Jesus archetype.
There you go.
Anyhow.
Yeah, exactly. And interesting that they called it Tenia because the Phoenicians were coming to England, why they colonized it, where these Celtic peoples that we call the Irish and Gauls and all that came from. It's because they were colonists to mine tin. Which is, what is the metal associated with Jupiter? It's tin, right? This is Tenia.
And I always just say Irish because their language preserves it the best. But where they landed was probably more closer to Cornwall and all these. So it's like the Cornish.
Kronos Wall?
Yep.
Kronos Ball, you mean? Cornwall?
Yeah,
Ball?
Right? Because the W and B interchange. Guillermo, Bill, Will.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the Scottish and Irish used to once be the same culture, so it's embedded in there, but because of the Irish's isolation, their language preserves it the most.
And this is the word Tenia written in the Etruscan characters. Now, let's talk about Beltane, because as I said at the beginning, today is Beltane the day we're recording. When this comes out, it'll be like the 6th of May, but we're recording this on 5/1, which was literally just a unintentional synchronicity because I was intending to do more Baal stuff, and it just fell into Taurus season.
Taurus season, like what? This was totally unplanned.
Yeah, it just naturally happens. It's like this is where the gravy portal takes you. All the time when you're surfing the gravy portal, it will be like synced up to the astrology, and you're just not even trying, and it just happens.
That might be the divine wisdom channeling itself into certain things. And also totally unrelated, but related. The next like 4 articles I have scheduled on my Substack are related to this and Minotaur symbolism and all that other stuff, which we may touch upon in the second hour.
Dude, just make that us inner world. Come on. We won't have time to get to it in this, but like all that, we should just keep this Empire of Baal thing going. We'll see. Talking about Beltane, the celebration of Beltane involved ritual purification of cattle before they were set to free to roam the pastures for summer. And of course, here we see the bull of Baal in the ritual, right? Incredibly far away from the Mesopotamian and Hebrew Baals. What zodiac sign, as we just said? It's May 1st, Taurus the bull. Modern British people struggle with the rhotic sounds, right? Especially when they come before N, for example, like the word northern in the British dialect. It's like they're saying north-in. Like they just totally cannot put R's before a lot of consonants in their words. So keeping that in mind, is it possible that Beltane was Beltarn? And it just got wrote down as Beltane because these people have a hard time with a rhotic N. This is just speculative, right? But I think it's relevant to consider how spelling reflects dialect in ages where there were no dictionaries to standardize anything, right? So Beltane could very well be Beltarn based on the way that those people talk.
And that's actually a process called transposition. And it happens in all languages, especially in times before literacy, where it's like you just pronounce things. You don't actually think about how it must be written or how it must look in writing, because most people couldn't even see that. Only the priests could, or people initiated into that system. So this happens all the time in addition to what he just described, but also like you might see something like Torbell or Torn Bell, like they'll mix up the roots or just reverse the roots intentionally to say, well, this is our rendering of it in this culture, so you know who you're dealing with. There's all kinds of things to differentiate so everybody doesn't sound the same.
Yeah, we're going to look at a few versions of that right now, especially the Germanic Teutonic peoples. All right, so this graphic is pretty dense, but I'll leave it up as we talk about this symbolism and this ritual of Beltane, because it extends into a lot of cultures. There's a lot of variations. I think it evidences the Celto-Phoenician diffusion from antiquity. One that's very popular is Walpurgisnacht, a traditional German festival that takes place on the night of April 30th. That places it on the night before May 1st, which is Beltane. And people will say, it's not the same as Beltane. It's our own special boy thing in Germany. It's April 30th. It's not May 1st. It is not Beltane. But when you understand that the Celts or the Gauls, they had a practice of counting a new day, calendrically speaking, like the number of the day on the calendar, it began at nightfall, right? So April 30th, on our calendar, the night of April 30th is the same day of the year as our day, May 1st, for them. Does that make sense? You follow me, Dylan? You know what I'm talking about, right? They start the day on the nightfall. So it's like April 30th, nightfall to the nightfall of May 1st. That would actually all be the same day.
People splitting hairs over like a day or a couple, like that
it's obviously Beltane.
That is literally an indication that you have no flexibility and you're like, you have a cult belief that can't get you the gist of it. Like it's like the same as being like the start of the Egyptian New Year being a couple days off from the start of, a high holy day to Virgo in the Latin culture. It's like you're splitting hairs.
The people that are into Walpurgisnacht, a lot of them are self-proclaimed witches. It's like witchy, cool witches. So they want to be special, of course. Now the wall or Val of Walpurgisnacht is obviously the same as Bell, V-B switch. Like it's spelled with a W. They pronounce it as a V, and V switches with B. That is Bell. Wall, Bell. Both festivals involve revelry and purging or purification by fire, including the tradition of people dancing around or jumping over bonfires to purify the energy of the old year from their self. Now this is where we get into some Catholic grabble. Modern Beltane is associated with the rebirth of the May Queen, who was dead during winter, Maya, if you will, Queen of Heaven. Walpurgisnacht, there's Nox again, Baal-Purgisnacht. Nox is claimed to be named for Saint Walpurga, a Christian missionary who allegedly lived in the 8th century and whose remains were transported to the Church of the Holy Cross at Eichstätt on May 1st when she was canonized. Here is the constant example. This happens all the time. Almost everything that they call a saint, right? Catholic saints are repackaged versions of pagan deities. Big surprise. Walpurga is Baal-Purge. A purge is purification of the old or the dead or whatever to make room for the new. It's a cleansing. Not to mention, if you just change the pur to B to the L, right? As we talked about with par, pur, fire, etc. Right? So Walpurga is, and right in the G, the gamma looks like a Y, pronounced like a Y. So let's just look at Walpurga again. Baal, fire. It's fire. It's literally Lord, fire, Yah, God. Valpur, Yah. Right? It's like ridiculous. And this saint, the dead Walpurga, who is remembered with ritual purification, is obviously it's the same. It's dead. The dead May Queen who is resurrected, remembered, like Osiris, remembered, put back together, what have you. And at the start of the new year. So this is Catholics reassociating, inventing something to slap over the top of a folk ritual to reassociate it with the new religion of the Empire of Baal. But it's the same thing it always was, right? They're just redirecting, reassociating, obscuring where it came from. Both Walpurgisnacht and Beltane have a May pole, a tall pole decorated with ribbons associated with the phallus, male generative power. Oh boy. P and B interchange again brings us back to pole, bowl, phallus, ballus. It just never ends. It's like everything. In Eastern Europe, though, this is one that less people know about. In the Balkans, there is a Slavic folk tradition known to moderns as Rodnavari. And they also celebrate at the end of April or start of May, and they call their fertility god Yarilo, which is a modern hypocorism, or a sort of like pet name, if you will. The oldest historic source of this god of the Balkans, Yarilo, is coming from the 12th century, and they called the god Yarovit, which is Jarovit. That contains Yah, which is God, Rav, swap the R to L, swap the V to B. There's Lob or bowl backwards, right? I have, this is a modern picture of Yarilo, but it's just the green man, depicted with the sun, beard, hair. I know this is not ancient, right? But this is like the tradition that has survived. And sometimes that still helps us see what's going on.
That green man, the earliest inscription of Cernunnos, is on the pillar of the boatmen found in Notre Dame. So it comes.
And the green man is a really big part
Roman
of Beltane,
Gaul.
Walpurgisnacht symbolism. People dress up as the green man.
And he has on him the crab horns or the crab leg horns of Okeanos or Thalassus. So now the further north they go, they add stag horns. But in the earliest symbolism, he's a deity of the mariners. And also, you said ballast, right? But then you also have things like the catapults, the ballista, or the balancing, stabilizing material of a ballast.
Yeah, or like, in terms of being a war god, bullets.
Yeah,
Shoot people with bullets.
Yep.
Ballistics, yeah. All these words related to war and weaponry. I mean, it's actually impossible to go through all of the things that have derived from the system that are part of like governance and rulership and all that. That's why the best we can do is give you the keys and show you examples of how to use the keys. And then it's like the They Live glasses. Once you get them on, you see it everywhere. The last one I want to touch on is Chahar-Shanbi. Chahar-Shanbi Shuri is what it's called. It's an ancient Persian festival. The meaning, according to moderns, of Chahar-Shanbi Shuri or Suri is Red Wednesday or Wednesday feast, which demonstrates, I think, the mental gymnastics of the current academic establishment. They will do anything to avoid the extremely obvious diffusion of solar symbolism. Suri is the sun, as in Surya from India, or Suri, the Etruscan Dies Pater, solar chthonic deity. The festival is said to have Zoroastrian roots. Sur, there you go. Zoroastrian roots represents purity and rebirth of the year. The difference is, instead of taking place May 1st, this Red Wednesday feast happens on the Wednesday before the spring equinox. They also jump over the fire to purify themselves. Wait, what other religion has a special Wednesday before the spring equinox? Can you think of anything? Does it have anything to do with fire and purification? Ash Wednesday much? The Catholics just took a Persian ritual. As we talked about, the putting the cross of ash on the head, the tav on the head. We talked about this in the Moses show. That is a Persian ritual taken by Christianity and Hebrews as well. It's in the Old Testament too. So, ash is fire in Hebrew. Ash comes from fire. Ash Wednesday, Red Wednesday, Wednesday feast. What do they do on Ash Wednesday? They feast because it's about to be Lent and they don't want to go into Lent with FOMO about all the things they wish they could eat. So they glut themselves on that day. So, of course, in Persia, right? Allow the B, P switch, RL switch. Persia is Bel Yah. It just never ends. I know that that's not what it was called in antiquity. It was like Farsi, right? But Far is Par. Par is bull. And Persia's most famous religious symbol is the Tauric, the Mithras slaying the bull, the Taurectomy.
About that, you brought it up. We got to talk about it before we go to the free paid hour. So, two things. Shuri, I've never actually seen it written in Etruscan on like on a tomb or anything. So I don't know how authentic that is. I've always seen people talk about it, and every time I try to chase it down, I can't find an actual artifact with it written. So I'm going to put that on the back burner. What is clear is that the archetype of Shuri, what is written is Aita, which is also a word that the Basque use, but that's in Etruscan tombs centuries before the earliest Basque inscription. Secondly, the earliest physical evidence of Mithra. Archaeological evidence for the cult of Mithras starts around the late 1st century AD, despite early 20th century assumptions that it appeared earlier. So the idea that this comes from
it's
Persia,
like I said,
may actually be mythological imperialism. You know what I'm saying?
I'm sure, dude, because it's just like I said about Christianity and Judaism, the Old Testament and the New Testament. I think they were created at the same time for different places. I think this happened across the board. They came up with regional variants for everywhere all at once. Just like the Germanics got their Walpurgisnacht instead of Beltane, but it's the same thing, right? I think probably Mithraism was invented for those Arabic peoples at the same time or around close to the same time.
What they claim is that while not images, or this is what like a basic AI search claims, the earliest written references to the Indo-Iranian deity Mithra appear around 1400 BC in treaties. But I guess we're supposed to rely on cuneiform for that, because the Iranians, the Persians, were like the last people to get the use of the letters, admittedly. So I think, again, the reason you have to keep returning to the basements of Rome for the actual artifacts for these cults and the symbolism is because it originates in Italy, and Greek mythological imperialism has taught us that Italy is from a Samnite word signifying bull. So Italy is from Italis, or land of bulls, or country of bulls. But scholars dispute that, like Eilert Sames, who he says, and it's hard because he doesn't write in Phoenician, so it's hard to verify this and how he would know this, that Italy is named Italia by the Phoenicians, meaning land of pitch, because that's where they would get pitch from in that part of Europe, which is then used for wood to, like, basically waterproof boats. And the other sources of pitch are near the Dead Sea. The problem is the Dead Sea, even in the earliest accounts of it, like I think it's Aristotle, it was too dense to navigate, salty. Like, it's been that way for as far back as the historical record will take us in terms of accounts from it. So I don't know if the Dead Sea and all that area was ever used like an actual sea.
Well, also, if it's Itaria and that has anything to do with pitch, and it's not just Tor, the whole bowl connection. Pitch, what do they say about something being dark at night? It's pitch black, right? The night, Nous, the blackness of it all. Also, pitch is hella flammable. You would use it for a torch, right? It's lighting up the night. It's similar to the idea of
a
oil
torch,
and light.
Taurch. Holy crap.
Oh, shit.
Gotcha, bitch.
It's just never ending. Okay, so we got to wrap it up somewhere, and we have a lot for part 2. So, guys, if you're enjoying this, just know there's a lot to get into in the members section, and it is extremely affordable considering the value of this research. We're going to start by, in part 2, going through more connections that are happening in Britain and Ireland, looking at some coins, questioning some of the fake history that we've been presented about rulers in that area, what some more modern rulers have done to show their association with the Baal system. Then we're getting into the origins of civilization and how this system connects to the Sibyls and prophetesses. So all that and whatever else comes to mind while we're talking about it, that's going to be on part 2. And thank you for being with us. Enjoy your Beltane, or, the week of Beltane. They are parlaying, speaking of their secret intentions in the dark, hidden away. It's ridiculous. That is like a cult mockery.
Everyone is getting a first-hand witness how valuable it is to revisit these, not to just watch them once.
This is what the golden thread is all about. When you realize Sibyl is the same word as civil. One of the earliest iterations of clandestine intelligence gathering. Damn, I never even noticed this, but Lucifer is the light cow, the cow of light. Of course it is. My God, it just gets bigger and bigger the more I pull on the thread.